What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Tom Bilyeu Show Live. We are locked and loaded today. The FBI raided the Fulton County election hub in Union City. People are not happy about it. This is tied to the election fraud. Reactions have been extreme. We're going to be going into that. The Fed has decided to hold rates very high. They are, in my opinion, pretending that they haven't already lost control of the economy. But they have, and we're going to cover the dramatic cause and effect of the fiscal dominance that we're all living in right now. Trump has announced his very surprising pick for the next Fed chair, and the market reacted hard. We'll go through that. Tom Homan is bringing a steady hand to Minnesota. He certainly has admitted that ICE had gotten out of control and that changes needed to be made. So we'll see if the continued cooperation actually plays out well. Speaking of cooperation, hundreds of thousands of Iranians are reportedly marching in the streets as a massive buildup of U.S. troops in the region continues. Certainly seems like something is about to pop off, and we're going to cover some of the details, including a cryptic message that Russia sent out about a potential strike that the U.S. has already done on another one of Iran's nuclear facilities. Lots of rumors flying there. Don Lemon got arrested, and Breaking Bad star Giancarlo Esposito openly called for revolution, apparently considering 50 million people dead, I'm not kidding, as an acceptable price to pay. We'll show you that clip, let you hear for yourself. And Candace Owens throws more shade at Erica Kirk as we put our tinfoil hats on in Conspiracy Corner. And by the way, we have alien talk today, like real, live rumors about aliens. So we'll get into that. I know it is a fan favorite. All right. Welcome, everybody. It's been a wild week.
We got a sponsor.
We do indeed have a sponsor. Do we want to do a segment first or kick them off right away?
We got to kick them off. Thank the sponsor. They are the reason that we're able to come and bring and holler at you guys. But we got some bangers. We're coming on the voter fraud raid in 30 seconds, guys. 30 seconds.
We have got it. All right, everybody. You do not need to quit your job for 6 months just to remove your data from the internet. Your personal information is on hundreds of data broker sites right now. Your address, your phone number, your email, even your social security number. You can remove it yourself, but it would take hundreds of hours to track down every site and submit removal requests. And that's just round one. Your data reappears constantly, so you'd have to repeat the process every few months. I don't know if you guys have run into this. It is the Wild West out there. I have had my identity stolen. I have had fraudulent stuff. I've had my phone hacked. This stuff is a nightmare. It literally feels like it is designed to be impossible to remove that information from the internet. But our sponsor today, who we love, Incogni, solves this problem. They track down your data across hundreds of sites and remove it automatically. You authorize them once and they handle everything. They keep removing your data as it reappears. Plus, with custom removals, you send them any link where your data shows up and their team is going to remove it. Just go to incogni.com/impact and use code IMPACT for 60% off an annual plan. You can try it risk-free for 30 days. Just go to incogni.com/impact and be sure to use code IMPACT so that we can get them back sponsoring the live show. Again, shout out to those guys for helping us out here on the live show. Much love to you guys.
Love you guys. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. It makes the dollars go into the bank account. All right. We got to talk about Fulton County. For those that don't know, that's where Georgia was. It's a key swing state. I said that's where Georgia is. That's where Atlanta is. It's a key swing state. It was one of the deciding votes in 2020. It's looking real shady, Tom.
This is the center of all the hubbaloo. That's the most Tacoma thing I've ever said in my life. But there it is. All the drama surrounding the 2020 election. Trump obviously just continuing to insist that everything was fraudulent. The election was stolen. And because, as Drew was saying, this is such a important swing state, I think this was the place where he was saying, go find me, how many other thousands of votes that became very controversial. And on January 28th, in a very controversial move, the FBI executed a search warrant at the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center in Union City, Georgia, seizing physical ballots and all kinds of other records related to the 2020 presidential election. The move is obviously tied to ongoing investigations into Trump's claims that the election was stolen. Now, despite Trump's claims, to be clear, so far, no widespread fraud has been substantiated in the courts or via audits. But the plot certainly thickens with this move because it would require a judge to find probable cause that something is going on. So theoretically, this stuff is not done willy-nilly, that they are presenting evidence as to why they think that this would be worthwhile. And they got a judge to say, yes, indeed, there is enough probable cause there for you guys to go in. Now, needless to say, the left and the right are locked in a battle to control how all of us see this move. The right sees it as finally getting to the truth, and the left sees it as a witch hunt. Now, the crazy thing from where I'm sitting is that watching the left right now in real time, they are attempting to plant seeds of doubt in the public's mind about Trump's admin gearing up effectively to tamper with the documents. We're going to show you clips. You can hear it for yourself. Their argument centers around the presence of DNI Tulsi Gabbard. All right, let's watch the clip. Her presence at the raid being discussed on MS Now. I thought this was pretty wild.
Yes, and based on that photo, at one point she was in a truck with box loads of what are apparently ballots, which means if she was alone, she is going to need to be on the chain of custody for those ballots and explain to defense counsel why she was with them and what she was doing. And if there was a special agent in there with her, that special agent is going to be on the chain of custody and is probably going to get asked by defense counsel why on earth somebody was allowed to be with that evidence who is not a member of the FBI nor on the chain of custody.
So, Michael, let me interrupt you for just a second, and I'll ask you to continue, but we just literally got some information about why Tulsi Gabbard was there. This is per a Trump administration official. Director Gabbard has a pivotal role in election security and protecting the integrity of our elections against interference, including operations targeting voting systems, databases, and election infrastructure. She has and will continue to take action on President Trump's directive to secure our elections and work with our interagency partners to do so. What do you make of that explanation?
It doesn't pass the laugh test for anybody who's actually worked in this world.
It doesn't pass the laugh test for anybody that worked in this world.
You want to play this out. Like this is, so before you hit play, obviously they're not going to just come out and say, we suspect that she's tampering with evidence. But if this is something I will often say to people on camera, off camera, is people say words for a reason. They are trying to convince you of something. So these guys are saying a whole lot of words. They are trying to convince you of something. I would say the very thing they're trying to convince you of is that it's suspicious that she's there. Like, they're not debating like, oh, this is a waste of taxpayer dollars, like she should be back doing something else. They're saying it's suspicious. Chain of custody. Why is she alone with the data? It's like they're planting seeds so that if something comes out of it, then the next step is, well, but the thing that came out of it is corrupt. They've obviously gone in and played with the data. So this is not somebody who's like, I really want to know what happened. This is a group of people that have a predetermined outcome that they want to make sure that we get to, and they will use narrative control to, at a minimum, get people to believe that this is where we're at, even if the data, like the hard information, leads us somewhere else. So anyway, let him finish his thought.
And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, this was collection of evidence. There is nothing there that cannot be reported to Tulsi Gabbard once they have processed it, analyzed it, and
so if that's true, what's the problem? You know she's going to get all the data.
Again, it is unheard of for non-law enforcement personnel to take place in the execution of a search warrant.
But why is it a problem?
Secondly, this is a criminal investigation. It is looking at past conduct. Even if we believed that Tulsi Gabbard should be involved in law enforcement actions relating to
so she is the director of national intelligence. It's not like if Bobby Kennedy were there or something and you're like, wait, why is he there?
Why is the health dude?
Yeah, like that would be like, okay, like that one's weird. But she we have entrusted her as a nation with the most sensitive information that we have. What are the global threats around the world? What are the threats we face internally? And so I get that she's not a member of the FBI, but if we understand that she is the hub of the most sensitive information that we have coming through the country, that she has been talking for ages about, look, Obama has been running like the Russia hoax and they tried to subvert Trump's presidency, all of that. And this is tied to that. Like, this is not surprising at all. Now, you may hate it, you may disagree, fair enough, but it's just the way that they're laying this out is strange. All right, let me give you the facts here. So Democratic lawmakers, including Senators John Ossoff and Mark Warner and Representative Jim Himes, quickly expressed concern, describing Tulsi's presence as quote unquote bizarre and alarming and potentially indicative of the intelligence community straying into domestic political matters. Again, if they were arguing this from a financial standpoint, I'd be like, okay, maybe. But they argue instead that DNI's focus should remain only on foreign threats, not hands-on involvement in FBI raids on U.S. election facilities. And they have requested briefings to explain her role. So these are not people that are worried about getting to the bottom of whether our elections have integrity or not. These are people that have a pre-drawn conclusion and they don't want anybody that could be messing that up. Now, as we heard in the clip, the Trump administration has defended Gabbard's involvement. Now, in regards to whether it's actually weird that she's there, it is. It's certainly unusual for a DNI to be physically present at an FBI evidence seizure, as the role is traditionally strategic and logistical rather than operational. However, if there's classified intelligence suggesting foreign actors, for instance, targeted Georgia's 2020 systems, or one of the other things that she's been working on, like I said, with Obama, it's pretty easy to justify her presence as legitimate oversight. The real question, for my money, is unless you're concerned about evidence being tampered with, which opens up a whole set of can of worms, why do you care who's present at the raid? Now, I understand Billy Bob from off the street getting to sit in the back with the documents by himself. That would be wacky. But this is the director of national intelligence. Everyone should want free and fair elections. If Trump is wrong, that will surface. Trump will have egg on his face, and we can all finally move on. And if he's right, don't people want to know that our elections are being tampered with? I really cannot wrap my head around the fact that people don't want to know like what's really happening. I am literally up in arms about the fact that California has made it illegal to ask for ID at a voting place. That is the craziest shit I've ever heard in my life. That is like a kid, a 3-year-old, telling their parent, I'm not doing anything wrong, and they've got like chocolate all over their face. I did not eat a cookie, Mom, but their just literal whole face is smeared with chocolate. It's there was another one that ICE can enforce around polling places. It's like, what are we doing? Like, at some point, the way that you're behaving makes it obvious to me that the very thing you're trying to do is make sure that illegal immigrants can vote. So I'm not saying that's what happened in 2020. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm just saying the energy from the Democrats around voting integrity is so weird that every alarm bell I have goes off. And if I'm trying to do theory of mind and I put myself in their shoes, I'm like, what would they have to be protecting? So option one, I so distrust the Trump administration that I really do believe that they're in the back of the van stuffing ballots or planting the fraud or whatever. Okay, but if that's the case, her being at the raid is not your problem. Your problem is just say nakedly, these guys cannot be trusted. They're completely corrupt. They are going to fake all of this. And no matter what's actually in those boxes, they're just going to fake it. Okay, well, they're obviously not going to do that there on the scene. That would be the weirdest place with the most cameras everywhere. You do that under the cover of darkness in a room that nobody knows you're in. So, but fine, if that's your hypothesis, put that forward, call it out. But instead, it's like you're planting seeds right now. This is narrative control. This is James Burnham all day. This is people will do whatever they need to do to alter the frame of reference of the people looking at the problem so they can maintain power. And this is so gross and so corrupt and just like, oh God, I really hate it.
Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitts literally came out and said that he was at the election warehouse. He now says that he no longer feels safe and secure. He no longer thinks the ballots are safe and secure because they are now out of their control.
Here we go. At least the same.
We don't know where they're being taken. We don't know what's going to happen to them. So we can no longer, and I can no longer, as chair of this board, satisfy not only the citizens of Atlanta, but the citizens of the world that those ballots are still secure. So that is a major concern that I have.
There it is.
Right
Well,
now.
welcome to the game of politics. So, yeah, when you're in a populist moment and everybody's on a team and everybody suspects the other side and nobody believes anything is as it is or should be or as it's represented, you get into these death spirals of everybody distrusts everybody else. And yeah, it is utterly fascinating. We long to put things in a box. And once you go, the other side's the enemy. Cool, nice box. Enemies lie, cheat, steal. Cool, nice box. So now it's like, oh, they're Republican. Oh, enemy, liars, cheaters.
Yeah.
And I want to be very clear. Both sides do this. It is a part of the way that the human mind works. But nonetheless, like watching it play out is so obnoxious.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. The Democrats, they gotta eat this one. So y'all gotta just say yes. We'll add voter ID, and just stand on it. And I know that Mamie in Alabama, who walks everywhere and hasn't driven since 1913, might not be able to vote no more. And I'm sorry, Mamie, that you can't vote no more. But Democrats, I'm gonna tell y'all with my whole chest, the party that says we're not Nazis is shooting people in the street, and they're defending that. The party that's saying we're not letting illegal immigrants vote are now saying, what ballots? What are you talking about? No, we're cool. Just I'm telling you, you'll be okay. You'll lose a couple mammies and they'll be fine. But I think Democrats need to change their tone, say we're 100% with voter election. We're 100% with voter ID. We're okay with it. I wouldn't say they're bending the knee. I wouldn't say Trump gets that win, but let them feel good about this next election, so that way you have nothing else that you can then be bulletproof. But I just think it's hilarious right now that the one party that says we're doing everything by the book is now hiding up ballots. There's a bunch of fraud. There's a bunch of things kind of in their back pocket. And then the other team that's saying, no, we're not Nazis. We're just trying to make the world a better place, is out here roughing up and shooting Americans. So it's everybody's kind of looking in the face and becoming the thing that they judge. And I think right now, this is their opportunity to say, hey, you guys are auditing the 2020 ballots. Okay, cool. Back then, we felt you saw some anomalies. Cool. Although I did watch the RIP this weekend, and you're supposed to count the drug money on site. So if I go to a stash house and it's $20 million, it's not throw everything in the bag and then we'll go back to the office and then count it. It's usually, okay, shut this whole thing down. I am the federal government. Nobody comes in and out. Let's lay these ballots out and let's audit it right here, right now.
Interesting.
That should have been kind of the thing in my perspective. But
well, do we know that they didn't do that?
They didn't, because they loaded them up in that truck.
So they didn't take an audit of the stuff.
They did. They knew what they got.
That's going to be like,
and then that's why everybody's kind of getting in front of it.
Got it.
But the big thing, though, and this is what I really want to talk about, is this the Maduro pardon? Like, there's been some rumors that the reason that we took Maduro and we've been light on him is because he says he has inside information about the election interference. And that's why DNI Gabbard is there, to maybe connect those dots that are maybe bigger than just, somebody's.
Yeah, this is the wild thing. I'm glad you brought that up, is the level of international interference that people are hypothesizing is very different than the likely international interference that's actually happening. Now, everything I'm about to say is all rumor and all conjecture, but I remember when election night happened, Elon Musk was at a party and he left the party early because he said, I already know that Trump is going to win. Like, whatever they're reporting is so delayed compared to the data that he had. Now, nobody knew what he meant by that. A lot of people thought that he was involved in election interference. The rumors that have come out since, and maybe they've been verified, I don't know, but I'll report them as rumors because that's what they are in my mind. But it's my understanding that what he did do was he knew where the vote manipulation was coming from into, I believe, the electronic machines. And they were able to shut those down, like either a DDoS attack or I'm sure something far more sophisticated, but they were able to stop that. And so once he knew he was able to stop the fake votes from coming in, then he was like, well, Trump's guaranteed to win now because it's only going to be real votes. Then you start getting all the rumors. Again, rumors, don't know that this is going to end up being true, but to your point about Maduro, there were claims from the Maduro regime that they knew or were involved in the manipulation. Now, the manipulation is almost certainly happening at the level of technology. So that if all of that ends up being true, that Elon did in fact identify where the fake votes were coming from, if Venezuela was involved and Maduro is prepared to rat, then we may actually begin to peel a couple layers back and see that the interference, the manipulation is far more high level than certainly I thought, and I think a lot of people thought. A lot of people thought it was more just like Russia's doing this thing where it may be a far more coordinated effort. And then it becomes a question of, I guarantee if you've got like Russia and Venezuela coordinating, you're going to find an NGO connection in here somewhere, because either they have a tremendous financial incentive just from a market level to see that happen in America, or more plausibly, they're also getting immediate upfront payments. And this is, you can just assume that my brain has been altered by Mike Benz, that the NGO complex has so much CIA infiltration in terms of actual people involved in NGOs, down to the strategies that they deploy. And so that they would turn that on America as we get into this highly divisive time where everybody's on a team, each team hates each other. You can see how it'd be like, oh yeah, we know that these tactics work. We'll use it to not, in their minds, undermine America, but to undermine the other side so that the rightful team can get into position. And so I don't care who ends up being found out in that. I want to know if we've got people in the government doing that. We need to know, like, aggressively. So anybody that has a favorite candidate or whatever and doesn't want that to come to light, they can fuck right off. Like that. That's one of those things where people do not have a sufficient level of hatred for the fact that we are controlled from the top down by, and I can go into this if it's probably not the right time, but we're controlled from the top down by a group of elites. It is a knowable mechanism by which that happens, because they're operating at a different level of way to interface with society. And so, most of the time we'll say, most Americans they want to get along, they want to raise their kids, they want to fall in love, like they want to progress in their life. And that is true. But there's a group of people that understand the mechanisms by which humans interact with each other. And they're able to step outside of the anthill of all of us going about our daily lives. And the social media age, while it creates a lot of noise, it also creates a ton of visibility into how those mechanisms actually work. And there's a really, really great book by Neil Ferguson that gets at the almost banality of the way that this works. It's about the Rothschilds. And when you see how they organized banking, one of the rules that the father understood was, he said, you all have to befriend politicians. And he was like, that's just how you're going to get all of this done. And so it's like you begin to understand that society operates on these layers. Most people think about their boss. Like, my boss has all this influence on my life. Yes, in like the local, but as you start backing up and think about something like the Federal Reserve controls so much more of how the planet operates, that your boss is stuck inside of that system. And so once you realize, oh, I have to get outside of the way that I think about the world regionally, and I have to think, okay, what are the forces that govern how economics works, to make it very simple, because economics ultimately controls everything else. And so that's where it's like, okay, you don't hate that enough. You're not mad about that enough. And you certainly don't understand it enough. And so once you begin to understand that the wrong way to think about that is the wolves howling and like, oh, it's this dark conspiracy and it's cinematic and it's eyes wide shut. The right way to think about it is there's just a set of people that interface with the world at structural influences. Money's the easiest one to talk about, so we'll stick there. Politics is another one. And so when you actually understand how money works, if you understand money and you're in those rooms and you've got all those connections, then all of a sudden, man, it's like there might be 150 people, full stop, total, out of the 8 billion. There might be 150 people that control economic policy globally. Imagine you know all 150.
Jeez.
So it's like now all of a sudden, it's not like they're all going to agree, but it's like you're in the room, you know the people, and you know the mechanisms by which this stuff works. And so that's where I'm like, we don't hate that enough. We don't demand enough accountability at that level. This is why I'm so freaked out by the WEF, is it's like, that's just them, that whole group of people getting together, dictating policy and feeling so right. They just put that shit out in the open.
And saying it out loud.
Yeah, like thank God, right? But still, it's like the fact that they openly go, the world is a controllable thing. We're going to control it. We're going to migrate it in this direction. And then there's like almost a helplessness to everybody else who really is just dealing with their life locally.
Yeah. Money in politics. That's the first thing. Until that like unwinds, we're never going to have clear-cut politicians, clear-cut policies, clear-cut nothing.
That's very true. And I wonder though, so given the ironclad law of oligarchy, which says, and I think is accurate, no matter what, you will always have a small group of elites who run the thing. The world, yes. Your country, yes. Banking, yes. Your household, yes. There's always going to be, in whatever group, there's going to be a small group of people that lead and pull everybody along. So it's like, okay, in a world where everybody's got a camera all the time, but most people are too distracted, and so they don't have the ability to completely eject out of the narrative, because the narrative is the simplification of a wildly complicated world. So it's like, just give me the simplified version, and then I'll know how to think through everything. So just tell me, how do Democrats think again? How do Republicans think again? Cool. Then that's how I think. And so now I don't have to think through all of that. I've got my team, I've got my marching orders, and I'm good to go. And so if the people at the top know that that's true, and they know that social media is going to give you 10,000 narratives, so everybody's really going to hunger for just like simplify mind, but now there's a whole bunch of variants. It's like we become ironically easier to control, but I think that there is an opportunity in all of that for people to, if they're willing to spend the time to build their own worldview based on cause and effect, you can start to eject out of this. And if I can, I know that the way that people see me is so inaccurate that they're not going to understand the following statement. Because I've started learning about the physics-like forces that influence economics, my rate of return from when I first got wealthy to now is dramatic. Mm-hmm. Because I have learned, there's structural forces here. You can't know the outcomes, and there's always risk. And one of the things that I spend the most time for is just going, I can't see the future, so I need to like spread my risk out. But it's wild to think that simply thinking obsessively about cause and effect, structural forces, that it's had this transformative impact on my ability to increase my wealth. Just really, really trying to get people to focus on that, because it will have dramatic impacts on the tangible things in your life.
Well, somebody else learned about cause and effect this weekend, Don Lemon, because now he's in jail. He was taken into federal custody last night in Los Angeles while he was covering the Grammy Awards. That'll be ironic if they arrested him while he was like in the suit. This is interesting. We're going to get into the who's and shoulda, coulda, wouldas and things like that. But specifically for Don, I'm not a fan of Don. I'm not team Don. Don is press, though. And typically, press is exempt from the same type of rules. If there's a protest happening downtown, press is covering on the side. You can arrest all the protesters, but you wouldn't then arrest the press on top of that. It seems like those laws, those worlds are now starting to become blurred. Do you think that this is a violation of the First Amendment, or is it one of those things that he effed around and found out?
To me, this is a question about what the laws are around private property. So you've got a church. I will say whatever the law is, people need to understand if you're protesting something, you absolutely have a right to protest. But there are limits to where, when, how you can do it. And so not knowing the laws about whether they can go into a church, and I hear that there's a law, the FACE law or something like that, that was originally designed, I think, stop the KKK from doing something. I definitely do not have the details here. We'd have to look it up. But so if there's a law in the books that says you cannot go into a church and do all that stuff, then yes, it becomes a question of, did he know that this was about to happen, and was he actively involved in it versus simply documenting it? And so if he violated the law, and this is a policy that applies to everybody ever since that law was passed, then whatever, he fucked around and found out. However, the First Amendment is the most important thing that makes up America. And people ignore the First Amendment at their peril. So I would say, if this is a tie, do we want the tie to go to the runner, or do we want the tie to go to the government? I would say you want the tie to go to the runner. Like, I would rather somebody get away with, because as far as I know, they were not violent inside of the church. Now, it's my understanding that they blocked stairways and things like that. And so the people that did that were basically separating parents from their children, which is the thing that I said, cool, arrest those guys. But if Don Lemon did not go block a staircase, then just like my take would be on January 6th, that if you were violent, lock them up. If you were not violent, then what the fuck are we even talking about? So now, again, same thing. If there is a law that says you may not enter the Capitol building unlawfully or whatever, and it meets the definition of unlawful, then yes, you charge them with whatever that is, trespassing, whatever. You certainly do not, in my opinion, ramp that up to insurrection or whatever. Just like I do not want to see people in Minnesota met with insurrection. I want to take each one of these things individually. If you use your gun inappropriately, problem. If you are violent towards officers, problem. But if you are simply there yelling, screaming, but it meets all the criteria for a protest, great, no problem. I don't think there should be some blanket edict. So that's how I feel about, without knowing all the details about the church thing that Don Lemon was involved in. I would much rather see there be leniency for anybody that's on the bubble than to say, no, lump them in, because it really, this is emotion on my part. It feels like people that lean right just hate Don Lemon. And so they want to see bad things happen to Don Lemon. I fall in the camp of, these are all policies, and the people that hate me are one day going to leverage these policies. And so I don't want those policies leveraged against me when I'm the one who's like, no, we really need to make noise about this thing that I care about, that I think is a big enough deal to go and do this thing. And so I just feel like people are blind to that with all the calls for arrest and lock them up and all that shit. So I don't share that read on society. I think at the level of policy.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I think on the wider scheme of things, talking with just everything that's going on in Minnesota, people are saying this person did a thing, they deserve what they got. And I'm talking both about Alex Peretti and and Don Lemon as well, where it's like, I hate Don Lemon, he should be in jail. Where it's like, okay, you don't like Don Lemon, that's cool, whatever like that. But okay, now let's say Nick Fuentes was outside of a protest in the same situation, they arrested him. Then you're going to be crying and call it. You know what I mean? So it's like, don't say you like the policy when it's somebody that you hate, because when it's somebody you love, that policy is still intact. That policy is still valid. They can still do this. If it was Alex Jones in that church, would you guys be feeling the same way that you feel now? And if the answer is maybe no, a little bit different, then you don't like the policy, you just don't like the person. And those things, two things are different. And then even with this new release of the video with Preddy like kicking out the tail lights and stuff like that, that was a dirtbag move. You hear he's a dirtbag. Yes, you shouldn't be doing that. That's foul. You spit on people. That's like a deal breaker. If you ever spit on me, it's like, don't spit on me and don't hang up on me. Like, those are the two things. Like,
oh, damn.
If you hang up on me, I'm never calling you back. I will never call you. Like, it's so disrespectful. But it's one of those things. It's one of those things that, like, if you hang up on me, that doesn't mean like, yes, now you deserve to die. Right. Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like you can still be you can still be a POS. I can still hate you, but your civil liberties don't get to be removed. Like, I hate Don Lemon, but I'm not going to say Don Lemon's not allowed a First Amendment right. I don't think Alex Peretti should have been like stomping on the car, but I still don't think he should have like got shot 10 times. Right. You know what I mean? And I just think this scale of like, I don't like this person, so yes, keep being mean to them, keep doing it. And then you don't realize, to your point, in 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whenever we flip the board, everything you hate about this one person is going to be due to somebody that you love. And how are you going to feel about it in that moment?
Yeah.
Speaking of policy real quick, Marusha Dark brought up the KKK Act, which was from 1871. which means you can't organize to violate people's civil rights, including the right to worship. So that's probably what they're arresting him on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that encapsulation sounds pretty damning for what they were doing. Now, they're going to say, no, it wasn't about interrupting their right to worship. This was about a guy that was all about ICE. This is about finding a public figure, somebody who's prominent and, really making noise around that. And the fact that it interrupted worship is incidental. And so the legal argument will go something like that. But if the policy says you can't interrupt worship as one of the things, then, well, fuck around and find out. So, yeah. But again, think of this stuff at the level of policy, regardless of whether you hate that person or not. Like Don Lemon, it just makes my skin crawl. There is something about the way that he interprets the world, that the way that he talks, like it just winds me up. He does not seem like somebody who's gracious or wants to understand people. But whatever. But at the same time, I just go, Don Lemon's an avatar for me. So there are people that feel about me the way that I feel about Don Lemon. So now it's like, if that policy is, again, if he violated the law, just as if I violated the law, then I should get punished for doing so. And he should get punished for doing so. But when it comes to First Amendment, I would say you want to err on the side of letting people go a little farther than you're comfortable with. Because it will come back around to you.
Yeah. I was looking for this clip. I cannot find it. Tom Homan spoke yesterday in Minneapolis, and I've never felt like I needed an adult in the room more than I did listening to him speak. He was metered. He was firm. He wasn't partisan.
Wait, you needed he was the adult in the room?
Yes, he I feel like we finally got the adult in the room. Like he was like, yeah, what do you mean? We're definitely going to deport people. I'm not going to tell illegals they can stay here. No, absolutely. We should do that. But I also know that if I work with the jails, I don't need 15 officers outside in the middle of the street either. I can have one officer going right to a jail. Yeah. So it was just like, okay, I can turn down the rhetoric and still do my job. I don't need all this noise. And he held some of the politicians accountable. But what do you think about Homan's speech?
I loved it. I felt exactly the same. What's interesting is to compare him to Bovino. Bovino has that, like, I hate it when people do this. I mean this literally in terms of affectation. He has that Hitlerian quality of riling people up from an emotional standpoint. Whose fucking city is this? Right? Like, I don't know if this might be the one. Like, if just play this real fast. You will see.
All the way to the top, everybody fucking gets it if they touch you. You hear what I'm saying? Less legals? We're going to look at shipping tractor trailer loads of that shit in here. So you catch what it's all about us now. It ain't about them. Professional, legal, ethical, moral. You know what we're talking about. Legal, ethical, moral. You're on camera. But other than that, this is what we do.
What city is it, Chief?
We're not on camera.
Wait.
Fucking city.
That's the whole thing. Whose
Arrest
city
as
is it?
many
It's our
people?
fucking city. So, I mean, listen, he doesn't have Hitler's charm, as weird of a sentence as that is to say. But he's got that same attitude. I want to rile you up emotionally. I want to send you in. He's like a football coach. It's like, we're going to fucking kill these guys. Like, let's go. Like, don't violate the rules. No yellow flags. But like, if you could fucking grab their nuts when they're on the bottom of the pile, nobody sees it. Like, that's the vibe that I get here. Speaking of which, I know former NFL players. Can you believe when they're piled up like that, guys will try to jam their finger in the other guy's ass. For real. Like, when I say, okay, these are people that played in the NFL at the highest
There's
level.
more to this story.
No. They try
something.
they try to like do the most underhanded shit to each other when they're in those fucking dog piles.
When they're on top
when they're
of
tackling, like, fucking get that guy.
I thought they were rallying
and
each
they're
other.
like, saying shit to the running back or whatever, like trying to make him never want to carry the ball again. And I was like, God damn. So anyway, this guy gives me those vibes. So Homan is like the exact opposite of that. Homan has enough politician in him, but also feels like the kind of guy that's like, I just want to be left alone to do my job, like doesn't have aspirations to become the president or whatever. So he's got the ability. He's a steady hand. He's not easy to sway. He's got a sense of this is what we're doing, and we're doing this because it's the right thing to do, and understands why he does what he does and is just going to push forward. Now, obviously, if you disagree with his politics, I don't expect him to be a popular figure, but he's not going to be divisive the way that Bovino, who's like all id, all emotion, rile people up, go out there, get them, this is our city, fuck those guys. Like, that's such a different energy than somebody who comes in and is like, listen, we're Americans. We have a job to protect the citizens of this country. This is a moral obligation, but illegal immigrants are human and they need to be treated humanely. Now, as far as I know, he didn't say those things, but I'm just saying, like, that kind of energy is very different than this is our fucking city. Go get those guys. So it's nice to see the switch, and I expect a dramatically different result because of it.
Agreed. Yeah. And he said he had conversations with both the mayor and the governor, so hopefully, and AGs. Hopefully this calms tensions down in Minnesota and people can leave and go home and we can stop this nonsense. Because they've been doing all this and it's been like negative 17 degrees outside. So I don't even know how you still protest when it's cold.
Yeah, wait till it warms up.
Yeah.
Like, I was saying this before. If this had happened in the summer, oh my God.
Sheesh. All right. A lot happened with the Fed yesterday. I don't even know where we want to start. Because Trump dropped his nomination, the Fed kept the rate steady.
Let's start with the Fed.
Okay.
Because this, I think, is ultimately the bigger thing. And then we'll get into Trump's nomination, which is pretty surprising. And I think there's a lot to talk about there. But the honest truth is the Fed has lost complete control over the economy, but they're pretending that they're still in charge. Per Powell's recent announcement, the Fed will be holding rates steady as Trump promises to replace Jerome Powell with someone who will finally, in Trump's mind, lower rates. Now, as I've said many times, the Fed is damned if they do and damned if they don't. So rates are going to go down and inflation is going to go up. My core thesis goes like this. We are in fiscal dominance. Fiscal dominance means the Fed has lost control. Jerome Powell, when asked directly, wouldn't even comment on the fact that the dollar just hit a 4-year low. He was basically like, I don't even care. It was so wild because he can't comment on it. The reality is that the national debt has taken over. The debt and the required interest payments are going to dictate monetary policy. Let me say that again. The debt and the interest rate are going to dictate monetary policy. It's not going to be the Fed, no matter who Trump puts in position, by the way. We are now entering the end game of a multi-decade debt bubble that within the next 10 years, my best guess on the math, will bankrupt America. The recent surge of gold past 5,000 and silver past 100 is the global financial market finally pricing in the inevitability of American sovereign debt becoming a crisis, okay? The inevitability of that. If there is a crisis of some kind, things could unwind even faster than the 10-year mark. So in my own mind, I think of this as sometime between today and 10 years, we will find ourselves in a sovereign debt crisis. I very much doubt it will be that fast, but if there's a crisis, it can move very quickly. If there's not a crisis, we'll just see a gradual decline until everywhere looks like Minnesota and America tears itself apart from the inside. And this is the important part because I know people think I'm being bombastic. That is what all empires before us have done. All of them have either ended like Britain ended up in World War II. So it played out differently, but I hope we can say that World War II is a pretty brutal price to pay for the end of your empire. Now, unless we ourselves end up in a war with China, we can expect this to be playing out at the level of just a loss of international confidence in the U.S. to be able to pay back its debts, which means that there will be a smaller appetite for debt. All right, but let's set aside war with another country aside for now, and let's always remember that no matter what we're going to talk about here today, because I know people, I don't feel doom and gloom inside. So I want to make sure you guys aren't operating from that perspective. You can always protect yourself and your family as best you can. No one can see the future clearly, but there is cause and effect here. It goes like this. We are in a debt trap. The U.S. national debt is now over $38 trillion, and it has reached a point where interest payments alone are consuming an ungodly portion of the federal budget. It's the second largest item on our federal budget, okay? It's bigger than the military, at least until Trump bumps it to 1.5 trillion. Then, hey, it would drop back down to the third largest item. The government cannot afford higher for longer interest rates without total insolvency, okay? Again, we're up against mathematical forces. So the thing that Trump is trying to do is lower rates in the short term to buy himself time for AI and all of the investments that he wants us to believe are being made in America and the deregulation to pay off, and we grow our way out of this. And I won't say it's not possible, but I will just say it would be ahistoric. You might buy yourself a generation, maybe. And I know that is wonderfully exciting, but I would put that at very low odds. Therefore, the Fed has to capitulate. They're not going to want to. Powell is going to want to keep rates high, but the political pressure will mount until finally they do, or Powell will simply be replaced in May. Now, hiding in that phrase, the political pressure will mount, is a very important idea because you won't see that as clearly in the math. But once you understand populism, then you understand what ends up happening is, I literally mean, everywhere starts to look like Minnesota. Remember, I believe Minnesota is an economic problem. Minnesota is not just about immigration. It's about populism rising in the face of a global K-shaped economy. I think it would have remained a fringe thing had the global K-shaped economy not taken over. So don't think of the Fed as being confused. They just can't say what they're actually thinking. The markets spook way too easily. So I think Powell understands all of this. Like if he and I were sitting here, he would argue, he would have, and I'm sure, very good points. But the reality is that he can't say all the things that he believes to be true because markets respond crazily to news. I know we've all heard that buzz about you sell the news, but man, when you realize just how volatile news makes the market, the Fed has to choose their words very carefully. So you're not seeing a representation of what Jerome Powell or what the Fed actually thinks. You're seeing the version they believe that they can present to the public, which give like little winks and nods to where they're actually going. But to prevent a government default and quite honestly, a banking collapse, the Fed understands that they have to return to quantitative easing. And in fact, they already have via something that's being dubbed stealth quantitative easing. And this stealth quantitative easing devalues the dollar. Now, instead of calling it quantitative easing, the Fed is using a technical term called reserve management purchases. They claim that this isn't stimulus, that's just meant to boost the economy. They're calling it a technical fix to ensure banks have enough cash in reserves to keep the plumbing of the financial system from freezing. As of right now, literally right now today, the Fed is right now today creating $40 billion in new money every month to buy short-term treasury bills.
Money machine go burr.
Money machine is smoking. It's going burr. $40 billion a month, man. This is wild. By focusing on short-term bills that are maturing 3 years or less rather than long-term bonds, the Fed argues they aren't trying to manipulate long-term interest rates. Let's be clear. Everything the Fed does is meant to manipulate the market. That is the design of a central bank. Literally. Whether they will say it out loud or not, the only reason to create a central bank is to be able to smooth out the pain and suffering so that you don't get these acute crashes, you don't get acute bank failures, that you don't get 1929. But the price you pay for that privilege is a K-shaped economy. So in any one moment, it feels awesome. Everybody's protected. But over the long run, it creates what we're living through. Now, whether it's a 3-month bill or a 30-year bond, the Fed is creating money out of thin air to buy government debt, okay? That just is what's happening. And that is, by definition, quantitative easing. Now, with the national debt over $38 trillion, the Treasury is flooding the market with new bonds to pay its own bills. There aren't enough private buyers already to soak up all the debt that we have to deal with without interest rates skyrocketing. Remember, interest rates skyrocket because people don't want to buy the debt at the current return that they're going to get. So that return goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and then money becomes more and more and more and more and more expensive. And so for the US government to pay the interest on its own debt, it becomes more and more and more and more expensive, and that's exactly how we will bankrupt the country. Okay? Maybe it doesn't happen in a year, maybe it doesn't happen in 5 years. But like I said, there's nothing on the horizon other than promises that will stop it from happening within the next 10 years. Now, the it from happening is when you go bankrupt, you don't technically go bankrupt, you just keep printing your money. So now you end up doing a soft default, but that soft default makes that K-shaped economy get absolutely insane, and only the ultra wealthy can afford a stick of gum. I mean, it gets insane. This is where people are wearing the flour sacks as dresses, which actually happened in the 1930s. So by purchasing the treasuries through this program that we were just talking about, it's called RMP, the Fed keeps interest rates down and thus keeps the government's borrowing costs from exploding, effectively acting as a backstop for the treasury's overspending. And voila, you steal from everyone. You keep deficit spending like crazy, and people with the right basket of assets just keep getting richer until the music stops, the currency hyperinflates, or we find ourselves in full-scale war or revolution. Now, the great irony here is after years of trying to shrink their balance via quantitative tightening, the Fed's balance sheet is once again growing, meaning they're buying up all these assets. And anytime the balance sheet is expanding, you are inflating the currency. Now, unlike in 2008, which was a localized crisis in housing and banking, this is a currency crisis, okay? Imagine hearing that with alarm bells, flashing red lights, me jumping up and down, screaming, flipping over the table. A currency crisis is a totally different ballgame than a sector problem, even a sector as big as housing or banking, okay? This is the absolute foundation of everything. In 2008, the dollar was still a safe haven. Today, the dollar is the asset that people are fleeing. And by people, I largely mean the central banks around the world. They no longer want to hold US debt. They don't want to hold dollars. What they want to hold is gold. And that's why gold and silver, things like that, are hitting record highs while the dollar index drops. Now, as the dollar weakens, the cost of imports and energy will spike, leading to persistent inflation. And when you combine this with a cooling economy, you risk something called stagflation. Stagflation is when your wages are flat, but things are getting more expensive. In short, the government is printing money to pay interest on its debt, which is destroying the dollar's value, and the soaring price of gold is the fire alarm that's signaling that the world is losing faith in the entire US financial system. And people do not understand just how much of our lifestyle is predicated on debt. You've got consumer debt, massive. It's how we fund our lifestyles. All those credit cards that you're able to max out. We've got corporate debt, how we're able to build all the AI infrastructure. We've got federal debt, how we're able to pay for entitlements, the military, the roads, all of that stuff. And we have gotten so ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, the fraud, we have to pay for that. We've gotten so ridiculous at our deficit spending. We've let that get so out of control that every year we stack another $2 trillion to our national debt. We are going to have to balance our budget. Now, we're not going to. That's the bad news. But if we don't, and we keep doing what we're doing, which apparently is the plan, K-shaped economy runs out of control, and eventually America has to hyperinflate its currency to be able to drive the value of the debt down so far that they can pay it off easily. Because remember, your debt is just a set number of dollars. And so if you print more of those dollars, then you can just pay it off. And what ends up happening is you pay it off by destroying your own currency. And so it is it's an inhonest way to default. You're still defaulting, which is why I call it bankruptcy. You're still defaulting, even though you technically paid it off, but you paid it off by draining the purchasing power of the dollar. It's no bueno.
It's the most noble trap, but yet I feel like we're about to walk right into it.
I'm not going to give you that it's a noble trap. I think that we're all stuck in the human mind works in a certain way. Mm-hmm. I don't think that people do it to be kind. I think they recognize that it will keep them in power. Like, I'll make a statement very clear. If giving people free things cost Mamdani the election, he wouldn't have done it. Politicians will do and say whatever they need to. They follow the populace. They don't lead the populace. That's the confusion. That's why I say Donald Trump was summoned. Now, he's a personality type. He existed before he became president, but there are plenty of eras where Donald Trump would never have become president. Never, ever, 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 ever. Had he run against Bill Clinton in the 90s, get the fuck out of here. The vibe was so different. People have been like, no way. So somebody like that, just they are a product of their ascension is a product of the time. And so politicians that rise to that level, it's really just what's going to keep me in power. And so I hate saying this example because I have so much reverence for what this person means historically. But Lincoln didn't start down the path of the Civil War to free the slaves. He did that once he realized, oh, wait a second, the bankers are all funding both sides of the war, which is smart, by the way, very smart. Always fund both sides. That way, whoever wins, you come out. Yeah, you're hedging. So from a purely monetary position, it's a very wise strategy. So he saw that's what people were doing. And so then he does the Emancipation Proclamation so that if you were funding the other side, you were specifically funding to keep people in slavery. Now, what Americans probably don't realize is that England was the first country to abolish slavery, and they sailed all over the world, taking on slave ships and trying to end it. And it cost them a ton of money and a ton of lives because they just got to the moral reality of it faster than anybody else. So now at a time where England is like the most powerful country in the world, they're the ones saying, oh, fuck, we can't fund the other side because it's about slavery and we don't believe in slavery. So it was a genius move on Lincoln's part, but keep in mind, it was about winning. It wasn't about like, this is a moral thing and I'm willing to do whatever the fuck. Now, he stood by it. He ended up giving his life for it, all of that. So, I don't want to discredit the man. But I say that so that people understand what humans are really like. We play to win.
And that's hilarious too, because that kind of reminds me of what Trump said about housing when he was like, here it is.
When he goes full retard?
Existing housing, people that own their homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. We're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their homes so that somebody that didn't work very hard can buy a home. We're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down. But I want to protect the people that for the first time in their lives feel good about themselves. They feel like that they're wealthy people. And I want them to understand it. There's so much talk about, we're going to drive housing prices down. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up for people that own their homes.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you're not saying this to who you think you're saying it to. And then that's when I realized, like, oh, you're talking to your base. So.
This is full retard. So it makes me very, very sad, but I am not in the least bit surprised. He's going to have to message things so that homeowners don't freak out. But the reality is you have to think about, I don't have kids, but I think about the kids a lot. Like, what's the world that you're leaving them? And this is one of those times where I wish people would live forever. They'd think a lot more about the future. So you can't just say what's good for me in this exact moment. You've got to say, I need the context of my life to have a certain setup. And part of that context needs to be safety and stability. And when you do things that do not give you safety and stability, I'm just like, what are these people doing? So this keeping housing prices high means that you're limiting supply, like by its very nature. And also in our wonderful circumstances, that is very sarcastic, you do it through inflation. And so some of they feel wealthy is all fake. Like, it's not real. The dollar's just declining in value. I hate how true that is and how it's just impossible to get somebody who's too busy to spend time thinking about this stuff to really stop and think. They just go, bro, my house is worth more. What the fuck are you talking about? And so, and I get it. And listen, if you're using a house in that way and you recognize you're paying a whole lot of money to protect your money from inflation. So it's like at a casino, You can place the insurance bet. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen those where you put money down against like the big pot or something. I don't even know how it works, but you put an insurance bet down so that you don't totally miss out on whatever. And that's what this is. Owning a home is one of the worst ways to protect yourself from inflation. It's just the way that people understand. So the vast majority of people are going to do it. And he's right. They feel wealthy for the first time and they feel good about themselves. He's very right about all that stuff. Like home ownership feels good. And given that we're still overwhelmingly heterosexual at the population level, women are going to bark at men to buy them a house. And so now you've got, I, as a guy, want to get laid. To get laid, I've got to please my wife or girlfriend, whatever. And my girlfriend just won't stop banging on about me owning a house. And so there's this evolutionary pressure to get you to accidentally do the right thing. And so I'm like, okay, great. Like, that's the setup. It works. Let people do it. But here we are breaking it once again. So he is going to do foolish things that will keep the price of housing high, and you'll have a small group of people that are, well, what were we just scrolling past?
Oh,
is this visible to the?
No.
Chat, Drew's algo is questionable at best here.
I'm doing a community check because I'm going to the Iran story next. But somebody said that this was an old video. So I was like, okay, let me go to the root.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very possible. So we'll get to that in a second. So anyway, he's going to keep housing prices high. He'll do it through inflation. He'll do it through limited supply. And you just basically lock in elder millennials and up. We're able to own a house and everybody else is fucked. And that's how you end up in revolution. Yeah, it's just so wild. This feels so predictable.
Yeah. So I know there's like a whole armada moving into Iran right now. And we're supposed to just be sitting there. Trump had that spicy tweet a couple days ago, no nuclear weapons. But it seems like this is legit, that there is still people protesting. People are still walking.
So is this video old or not?
It's not. I'm just trying to take like another angle to see like maybe I can get more context behind it. But it seems like there's like a energy behind.
Let me give you the context. It goes something like this. So from the Iranian perspective, if you've been being dominated by your government for almost 50 years, and you suddenly realize that you have the backing, for whatever reason, of the most powerful military on planet Earth, you've got your big brothers standing there. You're far more likely to get into a fight when you feel like somebody's got your back and they're not going to let you be slaughtered en masse. And so this really could be the tipping point that everybody in Iran has been waiting for. So I am extremely encouraged. My fingers are very much crossed, as this is partly a proxy war between Russia and China united, who are doing naval exercises together with Iran, going up against the U.S., which I think have very impure motives. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to hear me say that. I think we have very impure motives, but it's being leveraged, hopefully, by the people of Iran who want to be free. And I don't think there's nearly enough energy in America celebrating our freedoms, celebrating the fact that people were willing to die so that we could have our freedoms, how important freedom is to progress, because freedom is the thing that allows you to think through problems. And when you're not allowed to speak freely, you're not allowed to think freely, literally by definition, and you're not allowed to test, and you're not allowed to try things, and you're not allowed to question orthodoxy, and things stall out. You don't have to think back to any more than 2020 when we weren't allowed to question the science. And all of a sudden, it's like the progress that was being made slowed down. It went underground. People weren't allowed to say things. It was just absolutely wild. And that is how people get stuck. And so the Iranian people, from where I'm sitting, I do not represent the Iranian people in any way, shape, or form. But from where I'm sitting, anybody that is forced to align to theocratic beliefs, you're in trouble. And just as, I believe it was Galileo that ended up being put on house arrest for the rest of his life for saying that the earth revolved around the sun, which is absolute insanity, you end up in stupid things like that. Or Socrates, he chose death, but he was either going to be exiled or put to death for corrupting the youth via the Socratic method, which we now use in like grade school. So it's just absolutely wild when you have a theocratic notion of how the world ought to be, how the world is, and you force everybody to conform, everything just grinds to a halt, including human dignity, including human safety, because the only way to keep a regime like the Iranian regime running is to kill and kill and kill and kill. And you do that to keep everybody else terrified. That sucks. That is not a way to live. So, I hope that this comes from the Iranian people themselves, that they rise up. It's incredibly inspiring and exciting to see them still marching in the streets, because on the low end, people are saying 5,000 killed. Think about that. I think that's more than were killed in 9/11, more than were killed in October 7th. And on the high end, people are saying up to 40,000 people killed. And so that took 2 years of Israel-Palestine to reach those kind of numbers.
That's a population of Greenland, right?
Yeah, it's wild. So we'll see, but hopefully this plays out positively, sending all the love and encouragement to the people in Iran who I know. And Farhad, I think of you often. So hope you are doing well, my friend. And I wish that for everybody there.
Shout out to Biryani. Love Iranian food. All right, let's do some super chats.
We've got a ton today. So starting at the top with LeBron, he said, "Good morning, everyone,
Good morning.
and have a beautiful and wonderful day."
Oh, shout out to LeBron.
That's becoming
No
a
joke.
regular.
Happy Friday, everybody. All that good
And-
stuff.
Indeed.
Second one from LeBron. Don Lemon got arrested last night. I need to speak more clearly today. Don Lemon got arrested last night. Also, before anyone cries free speech, if you participate in coercion and intimidation of people in places of worship for political reasons, it's not free speech.
Yeah, America's going to have a lot of things to reconcile with what's free speech. Obviously, what is playing out in Minnesota is spitting on cop vehicles free speech, is kicking their taillight free speech. Where's the line? So we need to be very thoughtful about where we draw the line. So be careful.
Next up from Big Digglers, we've got two of them. First, why was Gabbard participating in the FBI raid? DNI on-site hints at foreign meddling. Maduro is singing lack of standing to dismiss 2020 election suits and no verification of lack of fraud. They never looked, thus never found any.
That might be a little underselling. Now, I haven't looked at this super closely, but it does appear that there were audits. Now, the audits were done by the people themselves, and so I get it. Much like if you think that Tulsi Gabbard cannot be trusted, you're going to think that the officials in Georgia can't be trusted. And in fairness, there has been a lot of irregularities in Georgia in that specific place for years, by the way. Before Donald Trump came on the scene, people have been pointing a finger at them and saying there's something fishy. So we'll see how it plays out. But the way that I would interpret this is that we should all just want the truth. So anybody that has a beef with them looking, I don't understand why they would have a beef. Let's look. And anybody that also just immediately assumes the other side is a problem, even if that ends up being the case, you just be more charitable than that, if for no other reason than to stop yourself from sliding into groupthink.
And that person accidentally paid for that super chat twice, so thank you for the double super chat.
Damn.
Appreciate you, Big Digglers.
Marusha Dark said, rapid fire. Trump is suing the IRS for leaking his tax documents. Dick Durbin fell for an AI photo of Preddy on the Senate floor, and the officer had no head. BBC video shows Preddy attacked ICE cars. Someone posed as FBI to free Luigi.
That was a speed run. I'm not sure that some of I didn't follow the switch to Luigi.
Did you hear that story? Somebody posed at an FBI agent to break him out of jail?
No.
Yeah.
What?
Crazy.
Yeah, it was alleged, but yeah.
Wait, did they succeed?
No. He's still in jail. But yeah, it was an attempt to break.
So wait, where is that case?
He's like in court. He's in trial now.
It's still ongoing.
It's still ongoing?
It's been going for over 2 months?
It's been going for a minute, yeah.
Wow.
Speed of the federal government.
Crazy. Crazy. Well, thank you for all of those. We'll let them stand as comments, I think, more than things that need to be argued against. So, word.
Certainly.
Thank you for putting the Luigi thing on my radar. I had no idea.
Next one from LeBlanc again. If someone breaks into a building and you know beforehand and you follow them in and just claim free speech, you're going to get arrested. We don't live in a caste system. Journalists don't have more rights than others.
They don't have more rights than others, but you definitely want journalists to be treated differently. So even think about a war zone. If you're marked as a journalist, everybody rightly gets more traumatized if you kill a journalist. which I think is good and right. And so I don't believe, if you're like a nature photographer, I don't believe that you have to stop the seal from getting eaten by the killer whale. I don't think you have to stop the baboons from tearing another baboon apart. It's horrifying, but your role in that ecosystem is to observe. And so if there are journalists embedded with, even if let's really push it to the extreme. There's a journalist embedded with a group that plans to do a terrorist act. Let's really make it horrible. If you have foreknowledge where people are going to lose their lives and you don't speak up, I've got beef. If you have, if you don't know what they're going to do, but you know that they are a terrorist organization and you happen to be filming and a murder occurs, I don't think that's on the journalist. So think about the war correspondents in Vietnam. So they didn't stop some of those massacres from happening, but by documenting them, they were able to get public opinion to switch and turn against them. And so my guiding light is that we need to get the information somehow, some way. And there is a very bizarre tendency for people doing illegal shit to still want the clout and to be documented. So it's like, yeah, document away. Now, again, if you know that there's going to be that level of crime committed, I would for sure want you to say something. But like, if you know that they're about to go shoplift, I'd much rather get the documentation. So yeah, that's where I come down on it.
Next up from Brandon Green. Tom, please do a deep dive on the trucking industry, and American trucking companies are going out of business. Also, the illegal immigrants' connection to getting CDLs by states to drive down rates and pay for us truck drivers. Yeah,
that's pretty wild. The whole CDL thing is, here's how I think all of this is going to play out. This is my working mental model. I try to always remind myself, I'm sure there's something I'm missing, to not hold on to these beliefs too tightly, but I think it's going to go like this. We have created a system with all of the entitlements where we have an easy beacon to draw people from all around the world that are drawn to handouts. So with that system in place, you then start getting this massive influx of people. And there was just more documentation coming out showing that in California, we are in fact giving healthcare, optional healthcare, not just emergency, optional healthcare treatment to illegal aliens, things that a citizen would not get. And so we're spending God knows how much money on that, but it's more than $1 billion. So we know that that is happening. So people are incoming to the state. That is, given the current strategy that Democrats run, which is to leverage freebies to get people in the country. So you've got the right appealing to businesses. You've got the left appealing to basically anybody that's going to vote for more free stuff. You get this massive influx of very useful bodies, as they call it, for the census. So now, even if they don't vote, you just have more representation in the Electoral College. Then on top of that, if you are creating a way for them to vote, which I think is going to come out, and I think we're going to see an absolute just tidal wave of fraud around voting, which is why they're passing all the you can't ask for ID, ICE can't be anywhere near a polling place, all that stuff, which you wouldn't care about if you weren't worried about illegals being blocked from voting. So I think that we're going to see just an absolute tidal wave of that. And so as you then go, oh yeah, the incentives are aligned. You have a party that uses the strategy of giving things for free. You have a system that gives things for free. That attracts a lot of people. That bumps up the census and helps you politically. And we deficit spend anyway. So what does it matter? Just give the stuff for free, turn a blind eye to the fraud, get as many people there as you can, boost the census. If you can get away with illegal voter fraud, do it. It's just going to keep you in power. So I have a feeling it's going to play out like that. So we'll see. But that's my
next up from Kiss My
Effect.
White Arse. Hey Tom, Australia has an
awesome.
FTA deal with EU. This is 4 years of access to the EU for Australian citizens, 0 by birth or naturalization, no job offer required. Foreign-born citizens equal 31.5% of the Australian population and will have a free access to Europe. Thoughts?
I think Europe's committing suicide. I don't know what they're thinking. It is stupid. Actually, I do know what they're thinking. And it goes like this. We have to maintain power. And the easiest way to maintain power when you have a declining population is to bring in immigrants. And it's perfectly fine that it will be the death of our culture, because our culture was going to die anyway because people aren't having kids. And so I'll at least stay in power, while I'm alive. And the fact that I hand off a country that is completely unrecognizable to the next generation just doesn't matter. Stay in power. If you assume they are running that algorithm, everything they're doing makes sense. Especially, and here's where we get really gross, now imagine that you are one of the people in the elite category that deal with the world at the level of structural forces, and you believe I can control immigrants. What's the matter? So yeah, bring them in. I'm not on the street at the street level, so I don't give a fuck about that. If you're getting stabbed, grooming gangs, whatever, like that's not touching my world. So just keep bringing the population in. Now, Japan is running a totally different strategy. It'll be interesting to see which one works better. My vote is clearly with Japan because I think that value systems matter so much that any fool who thinks that their government control will trump values is an idiot. So what Japan is doing is they're saying, okay, we have a rapidly declining population and we're going to use robots. And so Japan is literally they're already at the forefront of that. They're going to use it to take care of the elderly, and they're going to use it to increase productivity so that they don't need to draw in immigrants who were already beginning to influence their culture in ways that they did not like. And I think they only have like 3% immigrant population. So they put the kibosh on that real fast. So we'll see. We're seeing a natural experiment run between Europe, from where I'm sitting, committing suicide, and Japan saying, if we die, we die, but we're going to stay Japan all the way to the end.
Next from Stoic Anarchy, the right to peacefully assemble means you can't go into a peaceful assembly. It violates the rights of those peacefully assembling. Violence or simple disruption, the government protecting your rights to assemble.
Yeah, I think that people will have a harder time than you think saying what's still peaceful. So, and like, can you stand in the middle of the street? Can you super glue your hand to the freeway? Are these peaceful, or have they violated other laws by blocking traffic, et cetera, et cetera? And that's where all the drama plays out.
From Sequoia Hall, Georgia, where they closed the local polling places and you have to stand in long lines in the Democratic areas. You cannot give people in line water, etc. Voter suppression needs to stop. Only one side is doing this type of work.
So if I'm understanding him correctly, he's saying that Republicans are putting laws in place like you can't give them water, and that's voter suppression?
You have to stand in long lines in the Dem areas.
Yeah, there's only like one polling place for a population of like 40,000, for example. And again, you can only vote between 9 and 5.
So do they not have policies around what the, hey, for X number of people, you should have this many polling places?
State by state.
So what's stopping them from spinning up more?
State legislature.
But where? There's a mechanism. The state legislature is saying...
Yeah, the state legislature dictates the state's voters' laws.
But I'm saying the Republicans aren't having this problem, but Democrats are. What policy is causing that?
No, because Sequoia specifically is saying that the governor that controls Georgia, who's typically Republican, is in certain districts saying this is okay, in other districts saying certain things.
But what's that? What is this? When he says this is okay, he's doing executive orders that are saying for whatever reason, in this zip code, you can't have more polling places, but in this zip code, you can?
It's not...
So we'd have to research it. It doesn't sound like we know, but this is where so one of the things that I teach entrepreneurs in Impact Theory University is there's nothing mystical, magical about running a business. A business is a spreadsheet. You look at your spreadsheet and you say, oh, I don't like the result that I'm getting, but it's going to be locked to an action. There's a thing you do that causes this problem. So if this is really true and the government has made a policy that advantages Republicans somehow, some way, and disadvantages Democrats somehow, some way, you can point to the direct mechanism and say, this mechanism is the problem. Fix this mechanism. So we live in a world of cause and effect. So people just need to point to the thing and say, stop doing this. Now, if they're not for some reason, let's start screaming corruption, whatever. I'm all for it. Like, obviously, these things should be equal. But we tend to get into the drum banging of it all. This is unfair. This is bad. Instead of saying it's this mechanism, this is the thing that's broken. Let's fix that.
I would say gerrymandering,
really big.
man, if that's the case.
I got some extra
Gerrymandering's
context from
ridiculous.
chat if you want to go detailed.
This one doesn't feel like the most
Gotcha.
interesting thing.
Next super chat.
From Big Digglers, lack of standing means the courts never heard arguments against the 2020 election, but MSM ran with this as courts looked and found no fraud. This is narrative creation. The courts never looked and thus never found.
Can you read the next one too? Because it's
That's
hilarious.
interesting.
They contradict each other.
Yes. From Andrea2798, Georgia said they counted and recounted the ballots. They agree the ballots themselves were fine. That was never the issue. The issue is they didn't verify signatures, match names to voter rolls, or properly confirm chain of custody.
Yeah, that's why for me, this is like, just look. Just go look. Just put it to bed. All is going to be well. But you've got to let people run the thing. And by the way, if you also want, because one thing, given the moment that we're in right now, have somebody that both sides are like, okay, I've got my representative, say the Republicans. I've got my representative, say the Democrats, and they hold hands and they look at everything together. Cool. Love that. Yay. But not wanting to look is the weird part. That's where I'm just like, I don't know what people are thinking.
Okay. There was a viral tweet that kind of went off about what was his name in Breaking Bad? Gus Fring.
Yep.
Gus Fring saying he's trying to off 50 million people, which I mean,
It's not quite what he said, but it's spicy nonetheless.
This is time for a revolution. It's time for it, and they don't even know that's what they're starting. You know, some very
Seeing
rich
him
old
dressed
white
like
men
that, saying this is
are
wild.
exerting their power to suppress our own people, thus creating a feeling of civil war in the streets, preparing the haters to hate, teaching them how to shoot. They're not even trained right, to kill. This is all a preparation for a very insidious problem that's happening in our world. And for me, I have to speak out that we will not be iced out. This is not going to happen. They can't take us all down. If the whole world showed up on Putin's doorstep or on the Iranians' doorstep or in Washington, it would they'll kill 550 million, however, but the
That
rest of
escalated
us
quickly.
would survive with a new. This is time for a revolution.
Bro,
It's time
when
for
you
it, and they
kill
don't even
50
know
million
that's
people, you're talking, that's the scale of World War II. So he's like, you know what? Like, even if they kill 50 million of us, does it matter? So I'm just like, listen, Thomas Jefferson was right when he said that liberty comes with the requirement to water it with the blood of patriots and tyrants alike. So he's not wrong, but boy, do you need to be thoughtful about where that line is, because man, one, rolling up on Putin's doorstep, I assure you, he can and will kill 50 million people. So he's not the guy to play with. You'll notice that in Iran, they're only able to do it because you've got the US military on their side. So be a little more careful. And if what he's really talking about is locally here at home, and he was just trying to temper it by not just saying roll up on the White House, then it's like, okay, please tell me the exact policy that you want history to remember that you sent 50 million people to die for. Exactly. Now, I will say that he is not wrong about the people are in control. And people should never lose sight of that. People should never fear their government, and their government should be scared to death of the people. That is for sure. Do I love the flippant way that he's talking now? No. Would I much rather see him help people find a path to de-escalation? Yes. Do I think that a lot of people just get caught up in their feels and they speak from like what feels like he's saying words that make him feel invigorated versus words that actually are going to lead to an outcome that's useful. So, yeah, a bit silly in that sense.
I wanted to frame this with another.
But by the way, that tweet had like 17 million views.
Yeah.
So people definitely felt some kind of way about that.
It's probably because he was dressed that way. But I wanted to frame it with this because I thought this was a very interesting perspective. And me as a 53-year-old, sometimes I have to look back and think what the youth are going through. Jasmine's son said, if you're 21 now, Trump has been president or running for president since you were 10. This obviously has gargantuan consequences for Gen Z's views on democracy, virtue, success, and basically everything else. Trump shaped a whole generation's personal character, and we still don't talk about it enough. When I was growing up, presidential meant something very different than somebody who's 10 now growing up.
Yeah.
And so lawfare, pettiness, senators who are on podcasts, all this is now normalized. So I don't see us, when we always say we need to kind of fan the flames and go back to the middle and realize that, we need to go back to how it used to be. There is a whole generation of people who are like, what? Isn't this how politics works? We're supposed to be like this.
Right.
I'm supposed to hate the other side. I'm supposed to call them names. I'm not supposed to like them. What do you mean? So are we fundamentally teaching our children, I'll start it there, the wrong way to approach civics in the U.S.?
Aggressively. First of all, from what I hear coming out of the education system is a complete joke. It is not teaching people how to think. It is telling them what to think. And that already is a nightmare. You're abstracting cause and effect grotesquely. You are not teaching people how to find compromise and how to understand your way is not the right way. Your way is just your way, which would definitely be one of the things I would want to get people across. And as a PSA, I will often have a flash in my head that says, this is the hill I'm going to die on. And I almost always stop myself from saying it. But here is the hill that I will actually die on. Because I love and care about everybody that can hear my voice right now, I will tell you, your emotions do not have your best interests at heart. And anytime someone looks at you and tells you you're invalidating their emotions or whatever, be thoughtful in that moment, because I'm assuming that person loves or is somebody that you love and care about and all that. And so you don't want to intentionally upset them. That's not my message. But do not get sucked into that argumentation. That argument makes no sense whatsoever for that person. For that person to have the life that they want to live, they must learn to use their emotions, but know when to step outside of it. I would not want to live a life devoid of emotion. I also would not want to live a life where I'm a slave to my emotions. So just as I would not want to live in a world where I had no hungers whatsoever, I don't want to be a drug addict. I don't want to be a food addict. I don't want to be addicted to anything. And I find that people get trapped inside of their emotions to the point where they do not have any interest in seeing the world as it actually is. They only want to interface with the world as it makes them feel. And that is pure insanity for them. Because now your emotions are going to lead you all over the place. Most certainly towards ruin. And they are a device that evolution came up with to make it possible for you to choose between A and B. They are not meant to be an arbiter of truth. They are meant to be a thing that helps you move forward. Once I understood, my emotions are just trying to drive me forward, but they don't have long-term planning. I have to be in control of the long-term planning. And then I have to figure out which of these paths actually leads me towards that thing that I want. So anyway, it really, it makes me as sad to see a type 2 diabetic keep eating terrible food until their feet get removed, they go blind, and then ultimately die far too young, as it does to watch somebody who lives their entire life by emotion. It is just as self-destructive as the person who's eating themselves to death. And somehow people have convinced themselves that it actually makes sense to be mad at somebody for quote unquote invalidating their feelings. That is wild. Your feelings don't have any validity. They're just fucking feelings. It just means your brain, over your dint of your birth and the things that you've experienced, reacts in that moment in a certain way to something. In that moment, it'll be different from next moment to next moment. I could give you a simple chemical compound and it will completely change all of your emotions. If that doesn't make you realize, this is all just chemical processing. So did you know that a judge who's just come back from lunch is more likely to pardon somebody than the person who does it just before lunch because they're fucking hungry?
That was a crazy stat when I found that out.
I don't understand how people don't hear something like that and go, oh, that's me too. Wild. I need to be very careful because I'm stuck in this body and this body is doing things that do not lead me towards the things that I want. And I don't want to be a slave to my emotions or my biology, et cetera, et cetera. And there are ways not out of it because it's also beautiful. It's wonderful. Emotions are incredible. Love is one of the greatest gifts that life will ever give you. And at the same time,
You know how mad I'll be if I had to do an extra 18 months because you wanted a burger in 10 minutes. Oh my goodness. Like that speech was crazy.
That is brutal.
Yes. And then we also had that stat about women judges versus men judges and stuff like that too. Like,
I don't know that stat, but something tells me it's
going to be. I forgot about it when we were talking about the feminization of society, and they were like law schools have like chains and stuff like that. Okay, everybody, it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
And by the way, just really fast to tidy up any reactions from chat. I'm as pulled by my emotions as anyone else. I simply don't trust my emotions. So do I do stupid things because I get emotional? Of course I do. I'm just saying I don't go to bat for it. So when I do something stupid based on my emotions, like fuck, that was really stupid. That was an emotional decision. I don't invalidate my emotions.
Ipso facto. All right, let's grab these tinfoil hats and let's start with aliens, and then we'll get into the other one. UK filmmaker Mark Christopher Lee claims he was contacted by a Trump administration insider who says President Trump has already written an historical UFO disclosure speech confirming humanity is not alone. Now, this is on the back. Remember, a couple weeks ago, the Bank of England was like, don't talk about the aliens yet. Right. I need to sell my bonds. So they starting to connect. Lee initially said the speech was planned for a UN address and later claimed the insider provided a specific date, July 8th, 2026, tied to the Roswell anniversary.
I mean, listen, this is one of those things that I would love for it to be real. I would love.
You would love.
Love. Oh my God. In all capital letters. There is virtually nothing that you could tell me that would be more exciting. If you told me we could bend space-time, I'd be a little more excited. But if you told me that aliens were real, I'd be like, that is awesome. I'm so excited. I just assume one of two things is true. Either we're in a simulation and they're just simulating us, and so there's no need to render intelligent life elsewhere up until the point where we can bend space-time, and then you would render them, because it's just so much processing power to actually be running the other civilization. So they would just be probabilities for now. And then when we get to the point where we can bend space-time, or if the logic of the simulation is running something behind the scenes where it's like, well, other civilizations always have this constant probability of finally doing it, and then boom, they enter our airspace or whatever, and then they sort of become real. They start being rendered, at least the ones that we can see. So yeah, like cool, I would buy that. Or there are aliens and we just aren't close enough to see them. Like, it doesn't make any sense that in a universe as absolutely staggeringly large as ours is, like people, they cannot comprehend however big you think it is. You need to multiply it by infinity and an ice cream cone.
Yes.
It is so much bigger than people realize. And so the odds that we're like the only, get out of here. No way. So for my money, one of those two things is true.
I went to, you know where I went? I went to the Poly Market. It's a 9% chance that they confirm it before 2027. If we bet $100, it's $1,000, Tom. $1,100.
Yeah, I don't. Well, so here's what's interesting, and this is one I promise you there are going to be lawsuits over this one, because they say confirm, because the U.S. could do something that a very substantive portion of the world goes, that is confirmation. So like all of this bet hangs on the word confirm, because there were ones I forget about. Will Trump invade Venezuela? And then he goes in and grabs Maduro, and they paid out the people who said that it wouldn't happen. And so people are like, what? Like, he fucking went in with the military and snatched this guy, and they killed people on the ground. Like, how are you not calling that an invasion? And so it was like, well, bro, they didn't stay, not an invasion. And so, this is where whatever Trump says, people like me, first of all, are going to dismiss it. I'll be like, yeah, right. Even if Trump believes it, I'm not going to believe it. Like, literally, homie would have to walk in the room and be like, no, Tom, for real. Like, I'm an alien. I come from Alpha Centauri. Here's how we got here. Let me walk you through the physics. I'd get Eric Weinstein to come in, validate the physics for me. Like, then I'd be like, damn, I guess. So up till that point, I'm assuming everything is AI and governmental manipulation. You guys really do at some point have to see the things that Drew puts.
It's going to be funny. I'm going to set this one up. I've been waiting for this segment for 2 days.
All right. Without further ado, let's get to it, because there's some wild shit on the screen over here.
right. You guys have probably seen this. Put your tinfoil hats on. Allegedly, disclaimer. Apparently, source Candace Owens.
Well, she's also going to speak for herself here in a second.
This is a leaked Zoom call from Erica Kirk as she was debriefing her staff after the Charlie Kirk's memorial.
I think it was 5 days.
Technically 11 days after his like official death.
I see.
Yeah. But
so still soon. But
I think the call was 5 days. But it's just one of those things like, okay, this is in totality. Her husband died 11 days ago in front of everybody, and apparently her children and stuff were there.
Boss, but someone that you looked up to, someone that you believed in his
No, you have to
mission,
rewind it because it's the part at the very beginning that people are freaking out about.
Thumbs up. Look how cute that is. Sorry, it's just a little bit more informal than probably Charlie would be reacting. How sweet. I didn't know they could do that. I hate Zoom. I never liked Zoom. Sorry, you guys. I just wanted to say first and foremost, my heart obviously is broken for you guys as much as it is for our family. You guys.
You see how like it like changed from like the big smile to like there's another section I want to like pop into when she's like announcing like the merch sales.
So basically people are reading this as this is disingenuous. I think if you reach into their soul, the people that are really up in arms about this are trying to say that she's effectively like a plant and they got her to marry Charlie Kirk as some grand conspiracy, and like they took out Charlie knowing that they'd be able to put his wife in place and she's really the one that they want running this. They're not saying that, but this is what I imagine people believe that are saying all of that stuff. So for me, I have a very different read on this, but if you have other parts you want to play, now would be the time.
I can't find it and I don't feel like scrubbing it.
Okay. So for me, man, I cannot imagine the grief that somebody would go through in losing somebody that they love, but
oh, there was a correction. It was 5 days after his death. My bad. So you were right.
Okay. So the reality that she would be stepping up in his place, trying to keep the organization that he had going on. Like I think about Lisa putting on a brave face for impact theory and being like, okay, listen, this is what Tom will want, and smiling and trying to be upbeat for people. Like does not in any way, shape or form say that this is not somebody who was like just before coming on camera, an absolute mess. And just after being on camera becomes an absolute mess again. So this is one of those parts of humans getting to dissect people for whom they have no emotion around. They don't know her, whatever. She's just like a NPC in a video game to them. And so it's like, oh, this NPC's program is super weird. Like the way she's acting. And that one to me that's heartbreaking. I can only imagine what she's going through is brutal. And listen, Charlie Kirk married this woman. Is it possible that he married an Israeli spy? Sure. Is that the likely outcome? No. So this one to me feels like there is a certain way to parse the world that says everything is a conspiracy, everything is fake, nothing is as it seems. And I'm empathetic to that as you zoom out and get into James Burnham, narrative control, elites trying to run things, all of that. But you've got to parse your level of analysis. And so when you're getting down into, at this level of analysis, a mother and wife who is smiling and laughing when she has presumably a deep feeling of desire to protect her husband's legacy, is trying to be encouraging and empathetic and saying, I understand what you guys are going through. Like you either clock her as a monster, which some people I'm sure do, or you just go, there's no right way to do this moment. And
you can't tell people how to grieve.
Yeah. Like it's not like you're never going to laugh again. And I don't want to cheapen what she's going through by saying this, but I remember when our dog died, which I was completely caught off guard by how upset that made me. And you would vacillate between being upset and being fine. And so she not only is going to have that natural human vacillation of going back and forth, but she has to put on a brave face for the organization. So it feels very like I don't like in myself that like flippant, like, ah ha ha, like look at what this person's doing, like that's so gross or weird or whatever. knowing that when I go through it and then people pick it to death, like every now and then I'll see people's interpretation of me from the outside, and I'm just like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
So, but I get it. I'm sure that is how I come across to some people, especially because you're only going to see bits and pieces of me. So anyway, I have far more empathy and don't buy into the thing that she's like some big plant and it was all a conspiracy and that Turning Point USA themselves got him killed and all that stuff. But I know there's more.
Okay, so if that was my conspiracy cap, this is maybe my conspiracy hoodie. And I have more. I'm going to end up in a conspiracy jumpsuit, but we get in there.
Because Charlie had to fly back to Palm Beach with the president. And it's crazy to look back and you just kind of see the Lord kind of knitting his own beautiful image that sometimes we just don't always see. But we're blessed to be here for the second staff meeting at Invest with you.
Okay, so that video shows Erica Kirk standing on a coffee table on a pedestal. She's prepping for her first time leading AmFest. Now, Mikey McCoy recalls a time previous to that when Charlie was unavailable for AmFest. I guess he was traveling with the president and Erica stood in for him then. And shockingly, Mikey takes this moment not to reminisce about Charlie's legacy, but to insinuate instead that Charlie being assassinated was all part of God's plan to usher in the coming.
So first of all, I hear religious people say that shit all the time about everything.
Like it's God's
It was God's plan. God works in mysterious ways. God called Charlie home. Like, so that's not weird. Now, I will admit that if I were in charge of the transition, now I don't know the context around this. I don't know how many other meetings they've had. Maybe they did what I'm about to explain a dozen times. But only seeing that, if I am thinking, okay, my job is to transition the emotional allegiance of this gigantic organization from Charlie to Erica, you have to handle it very carefully. You do need to elevate her in some way, which they are literally doing physically by having her stand on the coffee table. You need to elevate her in some way. You need to separate her from everybody else. You need to put her in that vaunted position that Charlie had gotten himself in by doing, years and years of like the on the ground debates and all that stuff, and just the gazillion, billions and billions of views of him like doing it all so that people get that reverence for him. You're trying to shorthand that. But if I were trying to pass things off, I would do something way more subtle. So you've got her sitting, you put her in a hyper intimate area where people are gathered around her. She's elevated, but she's seated. It's going to be a very different vibe.
They're like a sitting on the floor type thing, like
yes,
carpets and rugs.
Amazing. Or even just a small like circular dais or something. And then you put people maybe in a half circle around her. There's something about that. You get them very, very close to her. So it feels incredibly intimate. And you don't have the artifacts of all the other people there. And one thing that you could do, because he's basically saying, okay, I'm going to confer the thing on her. I'm going to say the thing she can't say. So he's playing a very important role. But his tone, his demeanor needs to be one of reverence for Charlie. Now, the thing you're trying to hand to her is the reverence for Charlie. And so embodying the reverence that everybody has, the mixed sense of mourning and religious importance, like all of that stuff is incredible. So like having that sense of Charlie was called home by God, I think is very powerful, but you want to have a mourning for us mortals here on earth. We mourn, we lament. We cannot understand why God would do that. However, we know that God is real. We know that God is just. We know that he has a plan. And so from what we can see and what we understand, and if Charlie spoke to me, whatever language they would naturally use, I think it's obvious to all of us that Erica is the successor. And so if you've got her on an elevated dais, seated, everyone's oriented to her, he's standing, but off to the side, conferring all of that onto her. He's setting the tone. It's very down. It's very like we're all in the grips of mourning and all of that. And then what you're shifting then is pulling out of that into hope. And you put the hope in that moment of despair on Erica, seated, lit well, like all that shit. Now, Erica, I would have said, your tone needs to be like reflective of how they feel. You want to reflect that back to them. So give them a tone that is true and authentic. Don't fake any of this because they'll fucking smell that a mile off. But you want them to feel that loss. You want them to, like, have you ever heard the song Breath of Heaven? Oh my God. It's one of my favorite Christmas songs, even though I'm not religious. But it's Mary basically saying, God, why have you given me this responsibility? I'm not ready for this. I'm just some chick. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is wild. I feel completely overwhelmed. Fucking incredible song. If she could have that, like, I am unworthy. I do not know why I was chosen. My husband was built for this. But I understand what he means to the world. I understand what he means to you guys. I understand ultimately this isn't about me. This is about the mission. And I'm here to not only walk in the footsteps of my husband, but I'm here to clumsily try to walk in the footsteps of Jesus. And it's like, oh shit. Like, now people are like, fuck. So from a perspective of is she missing the tone? Yes. As an organization, do they have some fucking weirdness? Yes. Now, have they maybe done exactly what I'm talking about a million times? And this was like a run through and they're like, listen, you're going to be on a stage, just stand on this. So you get used to like the weirdness of like having all these eyes on. It could be something totally different. So without more context, I can't tell you. But the thing you would want to do at some point is that, again, coming from an entirely authentic place, channeling all of what I'm sure is this intense weight that she feels and a fear of letting people down and all of that. And then can she pull it off and be authentic and do it? That's a totally different question. But that's how I would have tried to set this up.
Velour. I'm in a velour tinfoil sweatsuit right now. I am taped up.
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom. Top to bottom. Netanyahu offers to take TPUSA to the next level with $100 million contribution. Charlie refuses. Charlie says he's dropping Israel. Charlie gets neutralized. Erica Kirk announces Turning Point 2.0. Turning Point USA brings in $250 million in contributions. TPUSA reaffirms
from Israel.
It reaffirms its support to Israel.
Aha. All right. I mean,
I broke up with people for less,
listen.
bro. I broke up with people for less. I'm just
in a velour tinfoil suit. I gotta say, yeah, that one's not ideal. No, that doesn't look great.
And then if this was a Geico commercial and then you hit back on me, now I'm in like velour parkas and I got like 6 of them on top of me. And I got exclusive footage of Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk when he came to visit her.
Oh, snap. I haven't seen this.
And
Jesus. What are you playing? What is this?
It's a scary movie. You never seen Scary Movie?
No.
The first one? Oh my goodness, it's so funny. It's like a parody Scary Movie thing. So it's like a Exorcist house. But it's a...
my God. Drew has just defiled the memory of Charlie Kirk. My apologies, everybody. I wondered what the punchline of that video was. This was such
a nice
Jesus.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Welcome to the hero's journey of my conspiracy theory.
Oh, my God.
Let's put a poll in the chat. What do you guys think? Is Turning Point USA inside job? Simple as that.
Ooh.
Was it an inside job?
Hey, nice blunt question.
Yeah, throw the poll up. Yes or no. And we'll leave it at
By the way, Chris, yes, no wonder his algorithm is weird.
I do it for the show.
That was
sacrifices that I made.
All right.
And then I had a couple quick hits. Tim Dillon torched Sam Harris. I thought this was hilarious. So this is the first of my Friday funnies.
Sam Harris, who runs a meditation app, but also believes that Israel should just bomb anyone at any time that it thinks. It is hilarious to be a guy who runs a meditation app and he spends half the time telling people about breathing and how to self-actualize, and the other half of the time telling people that we need to bomb as many children as humanly possible until Israel feels comfortable. That's just an interesting archetype of person. It just is. Okay, I want everybody right now to breathe. I want you to breathe in and out.
And just take a few deep breaths.
What we need to do is indiscriminately bomb women and children. I want you to breathe in and out right now. I want you to imagine an apartment complex. There's children playing soccer outside. Now it's gone. It's gone because there were bad people in it. Now they're all gone. Now it's rubble. And I know it's sad, but it's necessary. Collateral damage. I want you to say 2 words. Collateral damage.
All right, I've got to know. How does Tim Dillon do his show? Is he just alone in front of a camera?
He has there's like a producer behind who like feeds him
That's
stuff.
it.
But it's him at a table and he just goes for it. He goes for it.
That's
hilarious.
wild. You got to give props to
Yeah.
Tim Dillon as a stand-up comic.
No, but
he's also very thoughtful, in fairness. Now, I admittedly, and I don't know that this is shared, as Sam has called me out publicly, but I really respect Sam. So I think he is very clear in terms of his thinking. Now, again, whenever people often confuse, I hate your argument for you're stupid. Sam is not stupid. So now if you can go, okay, Sam isn't dumb, but Sam believes something that I consider morally reprehensible. So what is it? What base assumption does Sam Harris build his argumentation on? Then if you take him right to that base assumption, now you can have a productive argument because we can actually argue on the thing that the rest of his worldview is built on. And so unfortunately, I've spoken for Sam in the past, and he has said that I have not exactly nailed it. So I can only imagine that I have not accurately captured what Sam is thinking, but I imagine, I'm sure erroneously, that it goes something like, Jews have been persecuted throughout history. They needed to get a state of their own. They went back to their ancestral homeland. You have to be strong and protect yourself. You're going up against people that if Israel put down their arms, they would get slaughtered by immediately. If they put down their arms, there would be peace immediately. And so now if you want to go and attack that argument and say, no, these are not people that want to destroy Israel, you're 100% incorrect about that. Or you could say, okay, even given that, even if those people would murder you the second you put down your weapons, you still have to have restraint as you go in. Cool. Have the argument at that level. But it really comes down to base assumptions drive the outcomes that people argue for. And now oftentimes, I don't think this is true in Sam's case, oftentimes people's base assumptions are invisible to them. They don't even know they're making them. And so when you ask somebody why they believe something, you get into fascinating territory because you just keep drilling them down to the point where it's like, what is the underlying value system, belief, whatever that you have that's built up on this? Now, a thing that I have found very useful in conversations where you're really disagreeing with somebody, you otherwise love and respect them, but think that they're an absolute lunatic on something, is to go, okay, for you to say that, I think the following thing has to be true. And then ask them, is that true? Is that what you believe? And they'll usually say something along the lines of, I mean, sort of, but that's not entirely it. And so I will then ask them, can you say in a single sentence exactly what belief you hold that you're building this on top of? 99.9 times out of 100, they can't do it, which means they don't understand their own argument. And so if you can help them identify like what that thing is, so the phrase that I use is, you understand my position perfectly. So I'm like, I want to get to the point where I can say back to you, this is what you believe, and that's what your argument is built on. Now, when you get to the point where they say, yes, you understand my position perfectly, then the real discussion begins at that point. What I found is oftentimes in coming to understand their position perfectly, you usually go, okay, like I get it. You're not a lunatic. I understand why you're now saying the things you're saying, but I still vehemently disagree. And then can you articulate your single sentence of why you believe what you believe? And then it's just like, okay, well, we're not going to come to an agreement because each of these statements are either about how the world ought to be, or we both understand each other's interpretation of how the world actually is, and we think the other person's just wrong. Like the world isn't that way, and I have the data or whatever. But you'll find out if the person's building their argument emotionally, or if they actually have sound logic, or if it's not logic, it's a value system. Like you'll be able to figure out what they're doing. Now, as in full disclosure, usually when you run that kind of thing, that process, because people are acting emotionally and they don't know what their argument is built on, they feel like you're backing them into a corner and they get so fucking suspicious and people start acting like absolutely insane. But if you actually are asking not to trap them, but you are asking because you want to understand, like I'm never going to be able to just internalize your emotional state. Yeah. So I have to know what you're cueing off of. In the long arc of my marriage, that's been one of the most useful things on planet Earth. In the long arc of my companies, that's been one of the most useful things on planet Earth. But I'd be lying if I said, I'm sure I've lost employees specifically because I run that and they fucking hate it because I'm pulling them out of emotion and making them define things. And then I know there have been, call it 20% of the time where my wife and I will be doing that, and she will just get infuriated because it's like she feels you're backing me into a corner, and I'm like, I'm not trying to back you into a corner. I'm just trying to understand what the fuck is happening right now, because this does not feel logical. I can't figure out what is happening.
I thought you got triggered just that.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I want to be honest about what those conversations are like, because if people run home and they're like, but Tom said this should work. And it's like, they're both screaming at each other and freaking out. It's like, you really do have to not approach it from the position of, I want to be right.
Yeah.
You've got to approach it from the position of, I want to understand. Like, first of all, one thing I'll say to my wife is, hey, listen, if we get to the ground truth and it doesn't feel right and you want to come back tomorrow and say that wasn't it, no problem. I'm really just trying to understand here. So very useful. Anyway, if you drill down like that on Sam, he will be able to very clearly articulate why he thinks what he thinks. Now, it may be a value. In fact, let's assume it's a value and you don't share that value. Okay. Well, now we know we don't share a value system. And so we are both eternally going to look at each other like we're fucking insane. But the rhetoric that I see, and this is not Tim Dillon at all, but the rhetoric that I so often see is Sam's just a moron. It's like, for the love of God, Sam's not a moron. And this will be a great opportunity for you to figure out what is our values collision.
Yeah, that's a really good play. And that's a great way to put it. We got ITU coming up this week.
Yes, we do. So I'm very excited about this. I really believe that entrepreneurs are effectively going to save the world. When you think about the budget deficits and things that we are dealing with, we are in a world where if you want to get out of these problems, you've got to reduce the amount of money that you spend, or you've got to well, you definitely have to do that. And then you've got to make more money. Those are going to be the keys. So we've got coming up that's so very small, can't read. So we've got coming up a masterclass that we're going to be doing. You guys are going to be able to try this risk-free. So everything that we do is free. It's Thursday, February 5th at 1 p.m. live. And you guys are going to be able to join me and learn how to build a 5-member AI team. So if you're going to be launching your company, do it with AI. I just cannot stress enough how big of a difference this makes. So when you leverage AI to build these days, you can do it for essentially next to nothing. And so we're going to teach you how to build those first 5 members, how to leverage them. We've got a special surprise. So if you guys come, you're going to get something that will make starting your own company much, much, much easier. Again, this is Thursday, February 5th, 1 p.m. Pacific. So make sure that you show up. We've got a bonus that we're going to be giving away that's worth hundreds of dollars. So do not miss this. All right. Join us live. Again, it is free. I hope to see you guys there. All right. That's it. We have anything else?
That's it.
Beautiful. All right,
to our
guys.
Sponsors, Incogni.
Indeed.
Go protect your
Shout
data
out to
and your
Incogni.
identity.
And I hope to see you guys February 5th at 1 p.m. Love you. All right. Later.